You know, hustle culture will have you thinking that there's some type of honor in going all day without eating or being so tired that you crash at the end of the day and can't do anything else. And I think we could shift away from that toxic type of thinking. And here's the key. I've heard, I've experienced the fact that quotes, affirmations, and storytelling are great tools for helping people to shift their mindset. And in today's story, I'm going to share the importance of self care. Um, because caring for yourself allows you to actually be present for yourself. And if you're in a position where you are caring for others, it allows you to do that very thing. So let's jump in with today's quotes. Self care is not a luxury, it should be a priority. Hmm. Now, I can't take credit for those wise words. They're actually coming from the very wonderful Michelle Stafford. But I've got three things that I want you to remember. Number one, you are just as important as whatever that other thing is. Number two, self care is self love. And number three, treat yourself like someone you love. There is no honor in neglecting our bodies. Self care is not just a luxury, but it's vital to the necessity of us being in our overall health, right? Being there, being able to do the thing that we've been called to do, the thing that we are choosing to do, being good for us as an individual and being good for our community. My name is Maya D, and I'm a storyteller by trade. I do so through dance for the most part, and in more recent times, I've stepped into the world of writing. I share stories that feel important to me that I think might be helpful to the community. So, about 4 years ago, I started collecting these quotes from wise women in my community and in that extended community of the internet. And I started writing them down and using them as guidance to help me get through my day. And at some point, I've always been a journaler. I started very young. My mother inspired me to journal. I started writing them down on the side. So, like, if I'm writing on this page, I would write it down on the page next to it. So I would write down the quote. And then for whatever reason, I started writing these affirmations below the quote. So I've got the quote and then I have these affirmations. Um, and I noticed this wonderful thing. While journaling, I noticed this synchronicity between the affirmations and the stories that I was writing or the experiences that I was sharing. And I felt like, oh, this is kind of cool. And if I think it's cool, maybe other people will think it's cool too. So, how can I put it in a space for other people to experience it and to be in dialogue? Because I'm somebody that learns from listening to people and through discussion, right? So, how can I continue to learn from this experience? I crafted the stories into a blog. So every week I would share one of the stories in my blog just to see how people felt about it, to hear and to grow. And while I feel like I'm a book color, so I like a book. I like reading a book. Um, I also understand that some people like to listen. So I have encouraged myself to share these stories now in an audio form on this going live, which is something that is very much out of my comfort zone, but I've committed to it, because it is important for us to keep our commitments to ourselves. So I've committed to coming on live for the next 30 days and sharing these experiences. So let's get into the story time. Get cozy and or I said get cozy um, or if you're doing something, feel free to let this play in the background while you're finishing that thing. Now, I'm going to say it again. These are coming from my journals. So they're not these elaborate, epic kinds of things. They're like reflections. Okay. All right. Here we go. After a 19-hour day, you'd think I would be sleepy, and I wasn't. I was tired. I just wasn't sleepy. The loud noises of my stomach growling added to the noises keeping me awake. I spent a sleepless night worrying about how the next few weeks would play out. For over a decade, I'd been planning for 2021, and thus far, all of my joyful plans had fallen apart. A decade ago, I experienced my return to Saturn as I approached my 30th birthday, which is intense enough. And being a recently separated mother of four, the transition took up all of my mental bandwidth, leaving no space for me to think about birthday festivities. I opted to think about them, to think about my children. And as a result, I decided I would commit my 30s to crafting an amazing 40th birthday celebration. One that would include traveling to India, because after all, my dream life includes traveling the world and eating good food with my loved ones. In addition to me turning 40, the family would experience three graduations that year: a college graduation, a high school graduation, and a middle school graduation. The children are going to come in because, like I said, we have the high school, the college, and we could ask them questions about how they take care of themselves. Hey, how have you taken care of yourself today?
I ate breakfast
You ate breakfast.
as
Okay.
opposed to skipping the meal and going straight to
Mm,
the event.
okay. We like it. We like it. Eating breakfast. See? Eating breakfast is a wonderful way of taking care of yourself. So that year we were going to have the college, the high school, and the middle school graduation. It was truly going to be a celebratory year. I mentioned Aya before. She's the only girl in the crew. And Aya graduating from college also meant that I had like not just fulfilled a promise, but like double fulfilled a promise, because I'd made a promise to her father before he passed away that I would finish school. And at this point, it's like not only did I finish school, not only did I acquire several degrees, but now that our baby, our little one, who's not so little anymore, is graduating from college. So all of this required wonderful planning. But what's the saying? Life has happened. Life is what happens between your plans. And in this case, COVID-19 was the life that happened between my plans. For many, the pandemic included shifts in daily life, right? And some of the results of the lifestyle changes included depression and decreased ways of taking care of ourselves, decreased self care. I was guilty of not treating myself like someone I love. For the third day in a row, I had successfully failed at feeding myself, and as a result, I couldn't sleep. I was too hungry to sleep and too tired to get up and cook. And what made this so crazy is that same day I'd managed to make my son three meals, all of his snacks, and answer all of the emails that he sent me and his teachers and things. Yes, 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 yes. He was living that luxurious remote student life that had turned some of us parents into personal assistants. Somewhere during a pandemic inspired shift, my self care became a luxury that included lunch and dinner, but I was not afforded that same luxury. I was not showing my body that it too was important. And now it was talking back to me loudly, so loudly that I couldn't sleep. You are just as important. For my youngest, taking care of the little baby, I was getting up at 6:30 a.m. and doing my best to make sure that he was dressed and fed all before his 8:30 a.m. homeroom. Now, this was no easy feat because while he and his father and I, actually, I'm sorry, while his father and I we're both now Maryland bound because of the pandemic. We are a co-parenting team that does not live in the same house. We live separately. So my morning routine included driving a 25 minutes to pick him up and then driving back to my mother's house. But I didn't mind because my previous semesters at the university out in Indiana, where I actually was living and working, We're filled with these tragic stories from students, or tragic is a little dramatic, intense stories from students of how they were not being supported and how they didn't feel prepared for school and all of these things. So it was important to me that that one that just walked by, who's not the youngest, and his younger brother had a really good year. So I sat close enough to him to hear all of his teacher's comments while preparing his meals and his snacks so that he could make the use of the 5 and 10 minute breaks between his classes. Those moments for myself. I hadn't scheduled time for me to eat or for me to even prep my plant based meals or take a walk or any of those things. It's easy for us as parents, it's easy for us as people to get lost in our responsibilities that we have for other aspects of society. But we have to remember that we have a commitment to ourselves. Simply put, I forgot that I am just as important as those I care for. Reminder number 3, self care is self love. That was 2, not 3. 2. Love is a verb that includes actions of care. I was overworked, but this is not a complaint, but rather a realization that I knew how to care for other living beings, but I wasn't showing myself the same care that I show other people. Why is self care important anyway? The many roles and duties we facilitate during the day come with their own varying levels of stress. Self care is a way to allow our bodies to be at optimal precision state so that it can readily cope with those stressors. Proper planning prevents poor performance. My amazing mom performance, that amazing mom that I was trying to be, performance the next day was horrible. My lack of actions in the area of self care prevented me from resting well. And therefore, I wasn't energized enough to handle the next day. My movement was sluggish, my brain was foggy, and my stomach was still empty. I kept falling behind in everything that I wanted to do. And then I forgot to drink enough water. So the next day I had a headache and my kidneys were bothering me. So it just kept going. Treat yourself like someone you love. My pain was a reminder that I am the only person that's responsible for taking care of me. I decided to treat myself like someone I love and make feeding myself a priority going forward. After all, today's actions are the fruit for tomorrow. How could I teach my son to care for himself if my actions showed him otherwise? How could I show people how I like to be taken care of when I failed to take care of myself? In the words of the wonderful Michelle Stafford, self care is not a luxury, it should be a priority. So we need to remember that we are just as important as everything else. That self care is self love, and that we should treat ourselves like someone we love. I offer my story for those who do a really good job of taking care of the people around them, but need a reminder to take care of themselves just as well. After all, we can only be as good to others as we are to ourselves. So here's my question: what's a simple thing, act, activity, task that you do? My skin looks super oily. Sorry. That allows you to be more present or to be healthier for yourself, right? We need to take care of ourselves. So one of the things that I do, I'm looking over to see if it's sitting right there. Before I leave the house in the morning, I fill up a mason jar with some water and I put it next to the sofa because I know that when I come in the house, I'm going to sit right there at that sofa. And this way, when I sit there at the sofa, the water is right there. It's there for me. I can take it, I can drink it, and then I know that my kidneys are going to be happy with me because I got some water. So what's something simple that you've incorporated in your day that helps you to be healthier, to be more present, or however you define it? Let me know in the comments below because while it's helping you, it could also help someone else too. Um, as we close out for today, today is 16 of 30. I'm coming on live around this time every day for 30 days to share these experiences. Um, I want to remind you that something else that I offer you are those affirmations in the details below and some other goodies. But, you know, be great. Drink some water, get some rest, take care of yourself, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Take care.